At the end of the debate, you're going to vote affirmative because warming is one massive disability. The alternative is extend across the tickle card and the warming flow. He says that unless we reduce our emission by 40% by 2030, that we're all going to die because of massive sea level rise, and that's a disability. The alternative because examining being wouldn't be able to stop the CO2 emissions in the status quo. Also, that's going to turn the K because in a world of resource wars, people become more tools for the government for power, and that's individual agency. For example, at World War I, soldiers used sent directly into lines of combat purely to grab food means that this fiber resources is only going to turn the impacts of the K and make it worse. So the warming flow, one completely conceded. That means you're going to vote on that alone, even if they went all off and from the K. But then going to the grid advantage, they make these blackouts arguments. But extinction due to blackouts is worse than disruption of social order. If we don't have people here in the first place, that means that's probably reason to prefer that over ontology. But that even if they win that it does disrupt social order. The fact is that because we win the dissent to the impact of the warming flow, it means that it's going to check against that anyway. And that you should still vote affirmative because we need to actually be here to disrupt social order in the first place. And then go on to the counter plan. I just need to win the framework flow here. I just need to do the framework stuff here so they can get their K, but they can't get the overarching policy failure claims that extend across the fairness argument that doesn't answer the resolutional question. That because the affirmative has to start a step behind that. We need to win we need to win as the mandates of our plan to actually get back to step one. To then debate against them, and also that's extremely unpredictable. And because we're not going to be able to predict what frameworks they come into every round. And then, so if anything, just reject the overarching root cause claims of their case and make them prove their specific links off a plan action in the first place. Go on to the K with an overview at the top. First extend across the plan as a step in the right direction. Beal says that it specifically gets people involved because they become a part of the green economy, and that means that they then have a better appreciation for the nature around them because they see how the resources that they collect and use that they collect and use come out of the world around us, and that leads to a better appreciation of nature and being. And then extend across the extinction outweighs cross my mind. I'm arguing from before about extinction, how we actually have to have people on the planet first before we can do things like examine ontology. And then extend across the Robbins card. He says that when we face extinction, we realize how valuable it is to have things like life on the planet in the first place. So that means that if facing extinction is a prerequisite to their ontology in the first place, and that'll turn back their ethics claims, and their ontology is worse because they see oncoming disaster and instead choose to solve for a small minority of people that are being oppressed right now. Instead of solving for the entirety of the human race, and that is the worst ethical option in the round because that prioritizes the few over the many. So extend across the util. It's the Davidson card. He says the util is the most objective and most ethical policy because no one is prioritized over everyone else. So that's the most ethical option in round. If we're even if they win their framework arguments, that you're still going to vote for the affirmative because we'll win. We have the best ontology, and then they make this ontology first argument. But you need to extend across the Carson Williams card. He said we need policy first because it is key to ontological action. Across by my analysis by Robbins before about how facing extinction is key to that, and we actually need and policy education is key to actually solving things in the real world. If we detach, it's the box card. He says that if we detach, that means that the right will only be able to fill in and take over. That if we see if we sit on the side and just examine our being, that means that the Republicans in Congress would be able to just come in and start and revert back to a coal-fired economy, which would only increase warming in the first place. So that'll turn back any chance of them solving. Also cross my mind also from then also that means that the perm would be able to solve because that'd be able to solve warming and then ontological action. Then so cross my mind analysis above it about if we win the plan as a good step, that means the perm would be able to fit under the alternative and solve, and then they make this a global warming symptom argument that doesn't matter because we solve for it comes first. Also we solve the overarching problem and extend across the green economy card. Right, it's the Beals card. He says that we create a green economy that gets people more involved. That's my analysis from the overview that we solve for that first step. We solve for the root condition. Also then they make this ontology argument, but across my mind analysis from above about how extinction outweighs for that. Going to the back, they make this. They make these time frame perms, but this isn't a time frame perm. This isn't a time frame perm. We say that the plan would be part of the alternative. It's not do the plan then the alternative, and then they make that alt as a prerequisite. But it's across that case they decide to the alternative that we actually need the case. We need the case to be able to solve the alt in the first place because the alternative wouldn't be able to solve for things like other countries admitting the status quo as well. So extend across the Alliance for Renewable Energy argument that says that the plan is key to getting every other country in the world on board because U.S. tech leadership. That means that once we have the entire world on board to a green economy, that would be then everyone in the world would be able to examine their being. They'll create a better form of ontology throughout the world. They said that again, the case is prerequisite to the alternative, and then they make this argument that we see nature as a resource, but crossed by my green economy argument, my Beal's green economy argument from the front of flow, and then they say that the affirmative leads to warming, but that's not possible because we don't pollute anymore. Even if we do still see nature as a resource, the fact is that because we're not using coal as that resource, that when we use the sun and the wind, which is infinite green energy, that we wouldn't possibly be able to pollute anymore. And then they say that we only lead to further objectification, but cross-why with that, cross-why the Beals argument that we increase appreciation and that increases personal agency, because people become more involved. So that means that they would no longer see the Earth as an object because they see how integral that they are to a part of it and how much resources and energy affects the world around them and about them. They say that examination of being solves it, but it's not able to solve for warming or the good arguments because even if we do examine our being in our relation to the world around us, the fact is that we're still polluting with coal. There's no actual concrete strategy. So again, just cross-why my analysis about how if cases are the right direction, that means that we'll be able to solve this. And then they say the prerequisite to climate change, but cross-why how we're a step in the right direction. Right direction from the overview that Beals would be able to check against all of this, and even if they win some form of residual link that the Beals means that the green economy that we created would be able to check against most of these. That means that their impacts they won't be able to access most of their impacts because we're not objectifying as overall as they say we are. And even if we do objectify a little bit, cross-why my argument from before about how we make pollution impossible, that means we're able to stop warming in the short term. Then that's a massive disadvantage to the alternative in the first place. And then go on. And then on the front they make these standing reserve first arguments, but then first cross my analysis from the overview about how that's specifically worse ontologically because it prefers the few over the many, and that's reason vote for mine.